Hello everyone. My name is Shelby. Welcome back to my channel, Grace with Books. It is finally December, which means it's time for my November wrap-up and my December TBR. As you guys may or may not know, last month, instead of doing just a wrap-up or just doing a wrap-up and a TBR, I decided to mesh them into one video, so it's a nice one-stop shop for my past month reads and my future month reads. I am so excited to share with you guys the books I read in November and the books I'm planning to read in December, because I have lofty goals and I'm not quite sure I'm gonna meet them, but we're gonna try. I have no more introduction for you guys, so let's just get right into my November wrap-up. Quick disclaimer before I begin, I don't actually have any physical copies of the books I read in November. This past week I went home for Thanksgiving and I brought all those books back to my bookshelf at home to make room for new books at school. So these will all be beautifully displayed right here. I'm actually gonna move over a second. The first book that I read in November was Teeth by Holly Black. I gave this book 3 stars. For those of you who do not know, Teeth is a fae story by Holly Black. She is wonderful at those. It does take place within the same universe as the Folk of the Air series, which is Cruel Prince, Wicked King, and Queen of Nothing. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the fae in the background of that story, there are 3 books that Holly Black has published within the larger collection called Modern Fairy Stories, or was it Modern Fairy Tales? It was definitely Modern Fairy Tales. Within this collection she has 3 books, one of them being Teeth, and Teeth follows Kay, who is basically a nomad. She follows her mother around as her mom tries to pursue fame and fortune. Finally though, after an incident, she finds herself back in her hometown, and when she meets a strange fae who she then saves, causing this entire war to happen between these 2 courts. And she is sort of dragged in the middle. I gave this book 3 stars because Holly Black writes fae stories really well, like extremely well. It's what she's good at. But after reading The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King, I didn't feel that this book had that same level of excitement. It didn't get my heart racing. It just wasn't amazing for me, honestly. There is so much going on within Carden and Jude's story that when I was looking at Roybin and Kay's story, it just sort of felt a little lackluster. I think that Holly Black did a wonderful job world building, but the story was just a little flat for me, so I decided to give it 3 stars because it was still written really well and the characters somewhat developed, but overall it was an okay read for me. It's a good filler book if you sort of need to get out of a slump. If you just want to read more Holly Black, go ahead and read it. It's not a bad book by any means. It just sort of, it didn't live up to that expectation I had already set for Holly Black. The next book on my November wrap-up list was The Burning Shadow by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was a huge anticipated release for me this year. It is the 2nd book in the Origin series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is a spin-off series of the Lux series, one of my favorite series of all times. The Burning Shadow follows Evie, who is a normal human girl who gets caught up in the world of aliens called the Lux. There she meets Luke, who is not quite fully alien but also not quite fully human, and she starts remembering things about her life that she didn't remember before, and it's just this amazing story. I do highly recommend you read the Lux series before you read the Burning Shadow series. I gave this book 5 stars. Jennifer L. Armentrout is one of my favorite authors of all time, and just her writing was so good and so funny, and it brought me back to reading the Lux series for the first time and how happy I was reading those books. So just that level of joy that I felt while reading this book and seeing the story progress and seeing familiar characters, but also having it be focused on the characters in The Burning Shadow was just so good. I was so happy with it. The next book that I read this month is a graphic novel, and it is called Batman Nightwalker by Mary Lou, and this is a graphic novel adaptation of her Batman Nightwalker book. I did not read the book before reading the graphic novel. I saw this graphic novel in Barnes & Noble for 20% off and I decided to get it, and it was a really great graphic novel. Like, the artist was amazing. I love that they kept to the color scheme of like black and grays and dark blues, and it still felt so deep and with like splashes of yellow in there, and it was just such creative artwork. But I gave this book, I think, 3 stars as well. It wasn't my favorite. First of all, my biggest problem with it was that, yes, it's Bruce Wayne and it's his story and it's sort of how we got started with crime fighting, but the book isn't about Batman. It is about Bruce Wayne. Batman, that persona hasn't developed yet. So I sort of wish that maybe it was like a change of name, like Wayne and Nightwalker. I don't know. But I think it would have been marketed better, or I guess readers would know what they were getting if you know that Batman isn't actually in this. It's just Bruce Wayne as a teenager. But it was really nice to see Bruce Wayne as a teenager. Everyone sort of sees his persona as Batman and thinks he's like this moody, chip on his shoulder man, which he is, but he was a teenager at some point. And even though that his childhood was struck by tragedy, he still had this whole life before he became Batman. And it was sort of nice to see him in his teenage years. But I do wish it had been marketed differently. So I gave that book 3 stars. The next book that I read in November was Lady Smoke by Laura Sebastian. I gave this book 4 stars. Lady Smoke is the second book in the Ash Princess trilogy by Laura Sebastian, and it is just a really great female empowering book. Ash Princess tells the story of Theodosia, who when she was 6 years old, her country was invaded and her mother, the queen, was killed, and she was taken hostage by the Kaiser, who was the leader of this invading army, and she has been kept prisoner her whole life. In her society, females are the ones who rule. It's a matriarchy, so there's a lot of power within the women. And so the Kaiser has humiliated her whole life by forcing her to wear a crown of ashes, and everyone calls her the Ash Princess. And she is being threatened by with the lives of her people so that she obeys him. The Kaiser uses her to quell any sort of resistance. And she does all this for the good of her people and to survive, but after a horrible bloody incident occurs, she realizes that it's not enough to survive, you have to live. And she decides to take back her power and to reunite her people and take back the land that was taken from her and her family. So it is a really great book, Theodosia's journey through being sort of abused her entire life and then deciding to fight back. So Lady Smoke is the continuation of that series. It was a really great continuation. I thought it picked up right where it left off, and it still gave me that sense of female empowerment and strength and just the sense that we can do anything if you set your mind to it. Women are not helpless. So I gave that book 4 stars. The next book I read, shocker, was a contemporary book, and it was Tell Me 3 Things by Julie Buxbaum. I'm saying that name wrong, but it's okay. Tell Me 3 Things was a really good book. I sort of just needed a contemporary after reading all these very heavy fantasies, and it was so good. It tells the story of Jessie, who when her father remarries is forced to move to, I believe, California, and she sort of has to live this completely new life where she's alone and she doesn't know anyone and she feels very lost at her new preppy school. Until one day, she gets an email from Somebody Nobody, or SN, and he or she tells Jessie that they are going to help her navigate the school. At first, Jessie thinks it's a prank, but then as SN's information proves to be useful, she comes to rely on them for advice and encouragement and all these wonderful things, and this friendship forms over email and text. It was sort of like a mystery almost, trying to guess who was SN, and it was really fun watching Jessie sort of figure it out and also at the same time make friends while dealing with the recent death of her mother, and it was just such a touching book, so I gave this book 4 stars. The last but not least book I read in November was Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I talked about this book a lot. I have a reading vlog for it. Go check it out. But I loved Queen of Nothing, 5 stars. Queen of Nothing is the 3rd book in the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black, and it was such an epic conclusion. I think that Holly Black wrapped up the things she wanted to wrap up. I think that we really saw good character development from the 1st book to the 3rd book. And it was just such a wonderful way to end the series, keeping us guessing and wondering until the last possible second. Yeah, I already did a whole vlog on that, so if you want to hear my more in-depth, in-the-moment thoughts on that, please go check that out. But yes, I gave Queen of Nothing 5 stars. And those are the books I read in November. And now we're gonna go on to my December TBR. As I said before, I have some lofty ambitions for this month, so wish me luck, and I'm so excited to share these books with you. I actually have physical copies of all these books, so let's just get right into it. The first book I am planning to read in December is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. Yes! She's a big one. Actually, a lot of these books are huge, so really wish me luck. Kingdom of Ash is the conclusion in the Throne of Glass series, and I've been putting it off for a while, but I'm making myself read it before the end of 2019, so I am really excited to get into it. So yeah, so the first book I want to read is Kingdom of Ash. The next book I would like to read in December is A Touch of Gold by Annie Sullivan, and this is a King Midas retelling. It looks really interesting. It's about King Midas's daughter and how after her father turned her to gold and then was able to turn her back, she was sort of left with this power to detect precious metals, and it's sort of about her journey. So I'm super excited to read this book. We're reading a lot of sequels and final books this month. So the next book I want to read is A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. Yes! I need to read this book. It's been so long since I've read A Darker Shade of Magic, which is the first book in this series, and I'm really excited to see how Lila and Kel's story continues, so wish me luck for reading this book. I'm also reading another highly anticipated book of mine, which is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This came in my October fairy loot. As you can see, it has some beautiful sprayed edges, and it is about vampires in New Orleans. I'm getting very major originals vibe. I love that show, so I hope it's good. I've heard mixed reviews, but I'm trying to go into it with an open mind. So yes, The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. The next book I want to read in December is Shadowcaster by Cinda Williams-Chima. I told you, all of these books are huge. I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do. Shadowcaster is the second book in the Shattered Realms series, I believe. Yes, the Shattered Realms series by Cinda Williams-Chima, and I think it focuses on different characters than Flamecaster does, which was the first book. So I'm excited to see a different area of the world that Cinda Williams-Chima has created. So yeah, so next book is Shadowcaster. The final, and probably my most anticipated release to read this month is The Toll by Neal Shusterman. I loved Arc of Aside. I love these books so much. I'm terrified for this book because we ended on such a cliffhanger in the last book, Thunderhead. So I'm so happy to finally have my hands on it, and I'm really excited to see where Citra and Rowan, or Scythe, Anastasia, and Lucifer take us next. So I'm really excited to read The Toll. So yes, I'm planning on reading 6 books, 6 very large books in December. So that is my November wrap up and my December TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a big ol' thumbs up if you get the chance. Like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell to get information on when I post. I usually post on Mondays and Thursdays, and get really excited for some December content coming up. I am so excited for it. Okay, I'm rambling now. I love you all so, so much. Have an amazing day. You all are so special, all special snowflakes to me, and I love you guys so much. Okay, bye!